For sale by owners, it's highly emotional.
And I've only seen one house that they've bought.
Oh, really?
And most of the times we'll get, we have considered this property or this property. So it's not like a full-blown appointment with an expired.
Maybe this is one that we need to say no to.
Yeah, it's literally they'll call me and be like, hey, we want to buy this house. And I'm like, cool.
That's awesome. I love it. So we're going to talk for rent by owners.
Okay.
Kent, you are an active prospecting agent, 3 to 4 hours a day, 5 days a week, prospecting to REDX leads. Why do you like for rent by owners?
I think outside of geo leads, they're the most dynamic lead type that REDX offers. I look at the first lead that I ever got was off of for rent by owner from REDX. Called expireds all day, called for sell by owners, didn't get anything. Called a for rent by owner. They weren't looking to sell. And I said, well, what about buying? You looking to buy? Yeah, we're looking to buy something. Then I said, well, what are you looking to buy? They told me. And so I called around the neighborhood that they were looking to buy in and then picked up a person that sold to that person. So I double-ended both sides of the transaction, sold the two houses, each for 6%, and have done like 10 deals with that for rent by owner.
Yeah, my understanding was that you have repeat transacted with that for rent by owner multiple times in your short real estate career, right? You're in your 6th year of real estate. But to have somebody
And I've only seen one house that they've bought.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's literally they'll call me and be like, hey, we want to buy this house. And I'm like, cool.
That's awesome. I love it. And the truth is that's not uncommon when it comes to for rent by owners, right? I was at a live prospecting event a couple of years ago, and a gal, she'd never prospected before, and she was really nervous to call expireds, right? She didn't want to be confrontational. She was hesitant. And I said, why don't you call for rent by owners? And she called, and her first for rent by owner call, she picked up a 32 unit complex that the owner was trying to offload.
Yeah.
And ended up selling a 32 unit complex, which is pretty incredible. So for rent by owners, and I agree they are versatile. Yeah, I think you use the word dynamic, right? They are dynamic.
Yeah, they are.
In that there's a few different things that you can do with the for rent by owners, which is cool.
Yeah, so my script, if you want to go through that, is, hey, I was calling about the house on 123 Main Street. Did it rent yet? No, it hasn't rented. Great. Would you ever consider an offer on the property as opposed to renting it? 9 times out of 10, they're going to say no, which this is where, again, for rent by owners don't just have one property typically, they have multiple. So really there's a few thoughts of it. For rent by owners are either just barely getting into the game and this might be their only property, which if that's the case, call them back in a year because they're going to be sick of it in a year. Or they have multiple properties, so your follow-up question should always be, okay, I know you're not looking to sell this property, but are there any others in your portfolio that might be underperforming or have bad tenants in them that you have considered selling and maybe purchasing somewhere else? And most of the times you'll get, we have considered this property or this property. Well, great, let's do this, Tyler. I'll run some comps on your property. I'll get back to you later today. And let's just run through the numbers, see if it makes sense for you to sell or for you to keep it. Fair enough?
I love it because it's so simple, right? I think that we overcomplicate stuff all the time. And a lot of times I hear people go, I don't work with rentals. And I go, but you shouldn't be looking at it. That's one way you could look at it.
Yeah,
like if you work with rentals.
It's in the name.
Yeah,
for rent, and so it's automatically.
Sure, but these are fantastic investors that if we can add to our database, like you shared with your experience, first time calling for rent by owners, and you've transacted with this person 10 times or more in the last few years. So it's super awesome. So what if we go through some common objections that we get when going through for rent by owners?
Yeah.
Okay. Common objection when prospecting for rent by owners is, while on the phone, how much do you think I could get for my property, or what do you think my property's worth?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would love to give you a really accurate number, but the best way for me to do that is to just ask you a few questions. You have a couple of seconds?
Yeah, of course I do.
So how many bedrooms do you have?
It's a 3-bedroom.
3 beds. How many baths? 2. 2. How many square feet?
Just under 1,800.
1,800. And have you done any upgrades to the property recently?
It's got new paint. We put new flooring in a couple of years ago, but it's pretty standard, like builder grade, paint grade interior. It's kind of just your typical rental.
Okay. I love it. And are there tenants in it right now, or have they already moved out?
I do have tenants in it right now, and their lease is coming up, and they're not renewing here in less than 60 days. And so that's why I'm trying to put new tenants in there.
Okay. So you're kind of on the rocks, whether maybe to sell it, maybe to keep it as a rental. Well, Tyler, based on this information, what I'd love to do, I'd love to go back, crunch some numbers, give you a really accurate estimate of what it could sell for. Do you have some time this afternoon or maybe tomorrow to go over that?
Yeah, tomorrow would actually work better for me.
Perfect. So it's not like a full-blown appointment with an expired. Because there's tenants in them, make it easy to say yes. Run comps, call them back the next morning, and present those numbers. And say, based off of that, does it make sense for you to sell?
Yes, here's one thing I love about for rent by owners as opposed to for sale by owners, right? For sale by owners, it's highly emotional.
Yeah.
Right? And when you sit down with a for sale by owner and have the pricing discussion, oftentimes they're going, oh, but we've got a brick patio, not a concrete patio. Yeah. And they think there's value in that. Or, this one I hear all the time, well, we've got granite countertops and our neighbors don't. I go, okay, right? The appraiser's going to take that into account, but it's not going to be the difference that the for sale by owner usually thinks it is. Whereas the for rent by owners, it's just math, which means it doesn't matter if they've owned the property for a short amount of time or a long amount of time. If they're in a long-term investment game, it's just math.
Yeah.
And if the math makes sense, they transact, and then they transact again and again and again.
So here's what I found. You hear a lot of people say, buyers are bad. If you want to stay in the game, become a listing agent. And I think to an extent, there's some truth to that. But I think investor buyers are the best buyers. Truthfully, I'm a really bad buyer's agent because I'm not an emotional person. I'll go and walk through a home and say, in 5 years, this is probably not going to be a good investment. And buyers don't buy off of logic. They're buying off of the emotional part, which I don't tap into.
Right.
But the amazing part about for rent by owners, and this is where the versatility comes in, is I just have to use logic with you as a buyer. There is no emotion involved whether you're buying or selling with an investor or for rent by owner.
I love it. I love it. Okay, here's one that we get now and again. Are you trying to buy my property?
I'm personally not trying to purchase your property, but I do work with a group of investors such as yourself who would be interested if the price made sense. So tell me a little bit more about what you're looking to do, Tyler.
So I love that, and this is where your skill set really comes through, your experience comes through, is there's always a follow-up question. Mm-hmm. Right? There's always the response to the objection, right? But then there's always a question to follow up that allows you to continue to control the conversation, which is so crucial because the person who asks the questions is the person who controls the conversation. And when you as the agent are the one asking the questions, it means that you can guide the conversation to the place that you want it to go, which goes to show, and your experience and your success over the last 6 years certainly shows this and validates this, is a question-based script is always going to do better than a statement-based script.
100%.
Okay, here's another common for rent by owner objection, and it's no thanks, I can make more money renting the property out.
Yeah, I completely understand. And maybe the numbers don't make sense right now, Tyler, but are there any other properties that you might be considering selling at this time that are underperforming or have bad tenants in them?
And I love that response because if somebody's not interested in selling, it's not our job to persuade them to do so.
Your only job, and I think a lot of real estate agents get this wrong, when you're prospecting, your only job is to find people that are interested, willing, and able to sell. This is where your skill set comes in, because prospecting takes a little bit of skill, but it's more just repeating, approving, and asking good questions. The skill set comes in, okay, now that they've said, oh yeah, I can do that, well, now you go and give a great presentation for them to agree to sell it with you. That's all you're looking for. You're looking for hand raisers, and then your skill set comes in.
Awesome. How did you get my number, Kent?
So I got it on the ad that you posted online, or the internet is usually what I do. Yeah. Then ask the next question. I don't get this a lot from for rent by owners.
With for rent by owners, I don't either. And the reason why is because they are advertising the home for sale. Same with for sale by owners. Because they're saying, hey, I'm looking for tenants, or hey, I'm trying to sell the house. They post that.
You could even compliment them. Well, you did such a fantastic job advertising it online. That's how I found it.
Love it. Well, what's your commission? Or what do you charge for a commission?
Commissions are negotiable here in the state of Utah. And that's going to be one of the first things that we talk about when we get together.
There was a training session that I did recently, and one of the things that we talked about was the purpose of cold calling prospects, right? And it's not to educate, it's not to persuade, it's not to do any of those things. It's to set an appointment. Period. And I love that response because that's exactly what it does, where they go, well, what's your commission? And you go, that's negotiable in the state of Utah. That's why it makes sense for us to sit down for 15 minutes. That's why it makes sense for us to meet so that we can do that. And it's so crucial that real estate agents remember that the less we can say on the phone call, the better, because that's what allows for great dialogue when we get our foot in the door. All we have to do is make sure that the goal of us making these calls is to set the appointment, is to meet face-to-face, because that's where we can begin to nurture a relationship with that person that will eventually turn into transactions.
Yeah. So here's the way I look at it. And a lot of people will say, well, that's being sneakier. That's being, you're misleading them. But bad salespeople give price before they give value.
Amen.
So why would you give value? Why would you give a price without ever giving any value?
Absolutely.
So
I totally agree.
If they keep on pushing on the what's your commission though, you could say typical sellers choose to pay me 6% because of the money I net them. And that's going to be a decision you're going to have to make when we meet. Are you available this afternoon or tomorrow?
Okay, so let's role play that one again here, because I like that approach. It's upfront, it's direct, it sets a realistic expectation. So if we're prospecting, I'm a for rent by owner, an investor, I answer the phone and we're having a conversation and I say, well, Ken, what commission do you charge?
And I say it's negotiable in the state of Utah. And you say, well, usually the follow-up is before I meet with you.
Okay, before we meet, Ken, I want to know what you charge.
Yeah, and that's a great question. Most sellers choose to pay me 6% based on the money that I'm going to net them. And at the end of the day, Tyler, are you more worried about what you net or about what you're paying me?
Definitely about what I net.
Exactly. So that's going to be a decision that you're going to make when you and I get together, which is why it's going to be one of the first things we talk about.
Awesome. Okay, this is one that comes up often.
Okay.
And this is not just one that we hear when we talk about for rent by owners. This is a common objection that we get just about any time you're prospecting and you go to set an appointment and somebody says, well, I need to talk to my spouse first.
Yeah, certainly. And I would love for your spouse to be there. Will they be at our appointment this afternoon?
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully. Well, based on that, maybe it makes sense for us to get together tomorrow as opposed to this afternoon so that they can be there. Fair enough?
Yes, that'll work.
Just make it easy. I mean, because at the end of the day, I want their spouse to be there as well because you want that decision maker to be there.
Right. And I think that's the most important thing is sometimes real estate agents, we will take an appointment knowing that it's not going to go our way. But that feeling of success of going, I set an appointment, I'm going on an appointment, sometimes overrides the logic that says, maybe this is one that we need to say no to. Or maybe this is one where we need to gather more information.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, for rent by owners, you're calling investors, and this objection comes up, Kent. They say, well, I'd never hire somebody who cold called me.
And I can certainly appreciate that. I mean, this tactic isn't for everybody. Tell me, Tyler, you are looking to net the most amount of money, correct?
Yes, of course.
And if by calling netted you that most amount of money, wouldn't you want an agent who does that?
Yeah, I suppose.
So based on that, it makes sense for us to get together. Is tomorrow easier or today?
I love it. Piece of cake.